In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to The Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and JT.
You're tuned in to the Deal Board podcast from Transworld Business Advisors. I'm your host, JT Jim Tatum. And this episode, we're going to be hearing from Andy Cagnetta, Transworld CEO, and Andrew Bab of Debevoise and Plimpton, as they are exploring working on large-scale healthcare M&A transactions. Together, they're going to break down how big deals are structured, why sometimes large deals collapse, and what trends from both private equity activity and AI-driven healthcare are shaping the future of this particular market. Andrew explains how his firm has developed a dedicated healthcare M&A division, which now represents about 10% of his overall revenue. He and Andy also discuss the size and complexity of the deal team, sometimes 8, 10, 12 different professionals. That's including the legal teams and the lenders, the bankers, the accountants, the specialists that go through all of the different stages of due diligence, negotiating through the contracts, and being able to get these deals across the line. Together, they also highlight common reasons large deals fall apart. It might be a valuation dispute, it could be antitrust issues, or regulatory hurdles that have to be overcome to make these deals happen. Andrew also noted how interest rate hikes and political uncertainty, and they may have slowed activity, but he also notes how private equity still has trillions in dry powder ready to invest in this particular space. And finally, he shared how AI, revenue cycle management, and home healthcare are becoming attractive targets for future healthcare M&A. So let's dive right in to this episode of the Deal Board podcast and healthcare M&A.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 1,000 brokers and nearly 250 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com or call 800-205-7605.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are having another great episode of the Deal Board podcast, and I am very happy to be live here in New York at the Theorist Podcasts, and I want to thank the guys for hosting us today because we have some very special guests in, the big world of finance, the big world of doing large deals. We wanted to bring in an expert, and we have Andrew Bab with us today, and you could say the name of your law firm that you're with because I
Sure, it's a hard one to pronounce. Debevoise and Plimpton,
and Andrew has a specialty in doing large deals in the medical world, and we could talk about that. But first, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about how you got, how'd you get involved in the legal practice? What made you go to law school?
Oh, that's a good question. It's I almost forgot. It's been so many years. But actually, out of college, I went into investment banking. I was an investment banker.
So you went that way first.
I went that way first to a firm called Lazard Frere and spent about 3.5 years there. And then I went back to law school for a number of reasons. One was I had always wanted to go to law school. My father was a lawyer.
Right.
It was a lot of hours, very quickly out of school. It was, why not get a little more education and
right.
And there's something about the law I think that is a little more precise, a little more strict than there is in investment banking. And I could tell you, I had I don't know if anybody's heard of Felix Rohatyn, who's old master at this stuff, but Felix came in one day to we had a room, it was a deal, I think, for Warner Music that we were doing. And he came in and said, the value of this company is, X to Y. Now you guys go out and figure out why. Whereas I think in the law, there's a little more, let's get to the result before deciding what the result is up front. So anyway, that was that's where I.
So you graduate from law school and you jump right back into the investment banking world on the legal side?
Well, I went to I clerked for a year after law school. I started a firm called Cravath, and then spent about 5 years there. It was, I'm on the business side of, I don't litigate. I principally do mergers and acquisitions and other corporate transactions. Yeah.
Okay. And how'd you wind up in the healthcare space as a specialty?
Another good question. So I had been doing just serendipitously a lot of healthcare related transactions when I was at Debevoise. Represented a private equity firm called North Castle Partners, which was a firm that was focused on healthy living, and it was more serendipitous than intentional.
Right.
And then about 15, and we didn't have a specialty in healthcare. We, as many law firms did, we tried to focus on the general. Being a general M&A lawyer, can do whatever, sort of agnostic to industry. But we decided, I think, at about 15 years ago, we sort of thought, well, look, investment banks are doing it, and clients are sort of, to some extent, starting to expect some industry expertise. So one of my partners and I said, look, we've done a bunch of healthcare deals. Let's start up a healthcare practice and focus on it, which we did. And so it's been a very successful practice within the firm, actually. We've about 10% or more of the firm's revenues right now. So, that was how we did it.
Wow. And so, and these are large transactions, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar transactions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do some smaller ones, but I think our sweet spot is probably $500 million to $1.5 billion.
Right.
And, we love to get the mega deals, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. So what's happening in the M&A world these days? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts these days in the healthcare world, whether, we were talking a little bit earlier about regulations, Medicaid, Medicare, cuts, or, what's going on in the world? Are people trying to acquire as a preventative measure, or, as a strategic measure?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think, the M&A in general has been, perhaps we use the term on pause. I mean, it's been since the beginning of the year. There was an expectation when Trump came in that M&A was going to just blow up because he was going to reduce the heavy-handed regulation of the prior administration. Antitrust would be relaxed. He would encourage, he was a commercial guy, whereas, others were not. That didn't quite happen. And part of it, I think, has to do with some of the uncertainty around, principally the tariffs and also the fast-moving nature of his administration. People are sort of saying, what's going to happen? Where's this going to end up? So I think while there is M&A, and there have been recently a number of mega deals, and it's started to come back, it was slower the first half of the year than we expected. On top of that, for healthcare, we're seeing a lot of, I think one of the headwinds for healthcare now is sort of the growing regulation. One of the areas that Trump is not relaxing is, particularly in antitrust, is in healthcare. The hope had been that it wouldn't, but he's, you've seen him focused on pharmaceutical pricing.
Right.
And that can, that has a lot of implications. So it's not just what you do as a pharma company. Do you continue to buy this biotech? What do you worry about? But it's also, the intermediaries, in particular the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, are going to get squeezed, and Trump and others are catching on to, much of what they do. You talk to CEOs of pharma companies, and they'll tell you, hey, it's not us raising prices, it's the PBMs that sort of govern the prices. They get us to pay all these big rebates, and then instead of passing those along, say the pharma CEOs, passing those along to the end user, as they should, they keep them themselves, and so the prices go up. Even though our profit as pharma companies goes down because we're giving all these rebates. So there's a lot of moving pieces within the multiverse, the healthcare multiverse, that I think are kind of there's some just lack of certainty that I think is holding people up.
I think we've seen that in even in the down market world, that there's a hesitancy due to uncertainty. I mean, uncertainty is never good in deciding to make an investment in a company.
Right.
Everybody's out there trying to do a discounted cash flow on future earnings. And if you don't know what future earnings are going to be, or if there's uncertainty, it's hard to do. I mean, how much did the headwinds of the increase in interest rates, slow things down in like beginning of 23, 24?
Yeah, I think that was a big factor. Particularly for private equity investment.
Right.
I think there remains something close to $2 to $3 trillion of unused, and yet, who was it? Was it I forget. It was Blackstone, I think. It was Blackstone that just raised one of its largest funds ever. So people are still throwing money at these folks, and what I've seen, I see more and more private equity firms. We do a lot of our firm, about a third of our work is with private equity, generally across the board. So we see a lot of private equity work. We do a lot of work with, all the private equity funds that you may know. And they're becoming more active. They're looking at more things. Yeah. They're actually doing things. I had a party I was throwing the other night for my little team group at Debevoise. We break our M&A group up into three colors. So it was team green, and half of the group canceled because they had to get a deal signed up the next day. So the point is, I think we're seeing some of this tension and coiling. I think it's starting to relax a little bit, and my hope is that we've got a deal now with the EU. We've got a deal with the UK, deal with Japan. So I think that the tariff uncertainty may well be a little bit on the decline. Hopefully by, what was it, August 2nd is the 90 days after the Liberation Day. And I think you talk to CEOs and they want to do deals. They have deals that they need to do and they want to do, but they're just waiting for the right time. So I think there's a lot of powder, and I think we're going to see the second half is going to be a little bit, after Labor Day, we're going to get busier.
So let's talk about deals in general, because a lot of our listeners are in the lower middle market or even on the, SMB side, small business. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I always talk about, everybody wanting to move upstream in deals. And I think sometimes they underestimate the complexity in some of these deals. And one of the things I want to talk about is, what do you usually see in deal teams? Like, I always have these guys that try to do these large deals by themselves. And I keep telling them, listen, if you really want to act as a middle market professional, you have to build a team. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So what do the teams look like usually?
Well, I think that there are, putting aside the companies themselves, there are three typical groups that play a significant role as part of the deal team, right? There's your lawyers, your investment bankers, and accountants.
Right.
Now, the accountants typically, in my experience, play a more of a behind-the-scenes role. They're not involved terribly in negotiation, except when it might come to purchase price adjustment mechanisms. But the bankers and the lawyers are at the front end, and a typical, say, $500 million deal at Debevoise, we would generally staff that, with a bunch of people. We'd have probably a senior partner, possibly a junior partner. We like to, we think it's more efficient and better for the client to have two partners on a deal.
Sure.
And then we'll have sort of, maybe a senior associate, maybe a mid-level associate, and probably a couple of junior associates on the corporate side. Because one of the things that you do, there's a lot of diligence that needs to be done.
Right.
And you got to have a team that does that and does it, right. I mean, it's always odd to me. The practice has become for, it's been for decades that the junior associates tend to really take the lead on the diligence.
Right.
But if you get something wrong on the diligence, I mean, this is one of the biggest issues for a buyer or a seller, and so. I don't know, at least at Debevoise, we'll have a team of juniors, but it will also be looked at, up the chain a little bit. So you've got that. You're going to need a tax lawyer. You're going to need often you'll need a employee benefits lawyer.
Right.
You've got to deal with, management. You've got to deal with a lot of things that, how you price or how you build in the costs of bonuses and keeping people.
Yeah, compensation packages, employment agreements.
Yeah, and so you have that, and then if you've got, you can throw a lot of other specialists on the team. IP is a good example. One of the things, particularly in healthcare now, a lot of healthcare, cyber and privacy.
Wow.
Is important.
Yeah.
Regulatory is always important in healthcare and also in other industries, but you'll typically want somebody there, and so I don't know. You're talking about probably a team of 8 to 10 people, which may grow or become smaller depending on where you are in the.
It sounds like almost a dozen people could touch it.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Easily.
And one of the things that senior lawyers, at least at Debevoise, are focused on is efficiency, right? So, I mean, yes, you have a lot of lawyers. I mean, you do, and clients don't like to see 12 names or 15 names on a bill. And our job is to minimize that and to make sure that nobody's going down rabbit holes. But then you have that, but you also sometimes have bankers who they can play a significant role on this, and you'll often see. I mean, it sort of depends if you're a seller or a buyer. Active bankers can have a team of 5 or 6 who are actually also on the front lines, on the calls with the client.
So the bankers usually have a team of could be 3 to 5 people, maybe even more.
Yeah, and they sometimes they do their job, which is to give a fairness opinion or to advise about why this company might be a better buyer than that company, and then there are the bankers who I think are the better bankers who are involved in the calls. They're going to give advice on all kinds of things, on negotiations, on all sorts of things. So and I like that as a lawyer. I'd like to have that thought process, and some bankers are better than others than that.
Yeah. Okay. And so as far as deals getting done, I mean, these deals could go for 12 months, longer usually.
They can. I mean, so there are 2 different periods which you often don't see in the smaller deals. I'm sorry. That's right. When you in the smaller deals, because many regulatory thresholds don't get triggered.
Right.
You often sign the deal and close the deal at the same time. That's extremely rare in the bigger deals because, for instance, you might, if you're over $100 million, you've got Hart-Scott, which is the antitrust filing that you have to make, and you have to wait 30 days after you make that filing for the antitrust authorities to clear you or not. And if they don't clear you, it can be another year of waiting. So there's the period of kind of negotiation up to signing, and then there's the period from signing to closing.
Right.
And in agreements, depending on the industry, depending on the regulation, you probably try to, once you've signed, you try and close in 60 days. I mean, that would be good. And how long it takes to get from we're hiring the lawyers now, we're moving forward to a signing. That just depends on the players and the complexity of the deal and the like. So,
So why do deals die? It's always a big.
Well, there are a bunch of reasons. One reason deals die is a lack of agreement on the valuation of a certain aspect of the company.
Yeah.
As a healthcare guy, I tend to think in those terms. So you see that a lot in pharma-related deals, where you've got, or in biotech deals, where you've got, in particular, and you also see this in a number of other instances, but where you've got an asset. You got a biotech company that has a molecule, right, that they want to bring to market. Have to go through a bunch of stages. You got to get ultimately FDA approval, and then you've actually got to launch it. And there are different milestones on the way. Who knows whether those things are gonna happen? Great product if it goes,
Right.
gets there. And so how do you deal with that? And obviously, a buyer and a seller are going to end up, valuing that differently, just because that's the way they are. And there are ways to bridge that. There's something called contingent value rights, which are used quite often now in these deals. But I'm not going to say often, but on a number of occasions, people can't get there, and they don't want to use this kind of an instrument, and so the deal dies over that kind of valuation. Not valuation of the company, although that's obviously typical as well, but on a certain aspect of where there's no certainty as to the ability of the company to make that asset live. So I think that's one reason. I think antitrust is another reason. During the Biden years, there were a lot of deals that didn't get off the ground because of concern over antitrust. I think that's lessened dramatically under Trump. But in industries like healthcare, not as much as some of us would like. So, you can get to a point where the antitrust authorities are just, signaling you that they're going to give you it's going to be a second request, and a second request is a multi-million-dollar process because you've got to basically give every piece of paper that exists to the antitrust authorities, and then they come back and forth. So many people don't want to go through that, and they build into their agreements an ability to get out of the deal in that case. But look, once you sign a deal, once the deal is signed, at least in my world, it's 90% of the time you get to the end and you get closed.
Interesting. So the future of deal making and with AI and with the future of healthcare becoming even more computerized, or where do you see deals going? Do you think they'll get faster? Do you think people will be investing more in those kind of technologies?
Yeah, no, I think that they will be investing more in AI-driven healthcare technologies. No question. Both in drug discovery, in the pharma space, in a lot of deals that private equity do in this space are back office deals. So things like revenue cycle management companies that are there to minimize claims that don't get paid, make sure that you're making claims properly. It's a whole series of things to make sure you get your revenue in time, and it reflects the services you gave. And I think AI is going to be a real boon to that industry as well. And I'm seeing lots of investments there. So yeah, I think that those kinds of driven companies are going to be on the market. I think the other area is are companies that try to get you, that have a sort of end of life focus that is intended to make the whole thing easier and more comfortable. So home hospice, for instance, I think is becoming a fairly popular sub-industry. Home care generally, which is cheaper than going to the hospital, and anything that takes you away from the hospital, whether it's ambulatory care, also efficiency, so that you may start in the hospital, but if there's a system that, for instance, Humana was coming up with a system as an insurance company where, they would have a set of nurses and doctors who would. It's not only a home hospice, but they would have specific required visits by people in order to ensure that they weren't going to end up back in the hospital. And so all that kind of thing, which is intended to make more efficient, avoid expense, avoid getting back into the hospital. I think those kinds of companies, and there are a lot of different pieces to them, I think will also be good targets.
Do you feel hopeful about the healthcare industry moving forward?
Well, I feel hopeful about the M&A aspect of it, but you should talk to my wife, who is really distraught. I mean, she needs to see a neurologist,
right?
And she's gotten recommendations from several people to the same neurologist or to one or two different ones a year before she can get into the office.
Right.
That is not hopeful. That is a disaster. And so I think that's going to be a problem. I think the other problem that I see, well, look, we've got a dearth of nurses. I think we have a dearth of doctors. Insurance is it may be sort of like democracy, the worst form of protection, except for all the others. But on top of that, this concern over drug pricing, and I understand it, but if it goes too far, and I think it probably will, it will stifle innovation.
And investment and discoveries.
And all of that stuff, right. And that, that's what makes makes the United States system, our medical system, frankly, better than anywhere else. All of the innovation is here. Most of the innovation is here.
Understood.
And if that disappears, I think it's a problem.
Yeah. So, but you're hopeful in the M&A world. And I am too. I do think things like AI could make us more efficient, and maybe the transparency in the whole system, maybe the transparency gets better. I would hope.
I would hope so too.
Yeah.
And look, I think, for the last 10 years, folks have been moving towards unification so that, medical records, frankly, can go through systems. I was going to mention that.
Yeah, sure.
And there are all other aspects. I don't think we're there yet. I think that it's a problem. And when things like, in New York, I can't remember the ages, but you can't, as a parent, get the medical records of your 13-year-old. You need permission from the 13-year-old to do it. Right. And so what do you do? And I don't remember how young it goes, to me, that's a stupid result and detrimental to health of kids' health.
Sure.
So anyway,
I agree with you. I think we have a lot of work to do out there in the world, and and I think, as long as you said, like, if too much money comes out of the system, obviously everybody just trying to cut expenses will mean less care. So
that's right.
So I think there needs to be. I think someday there's going to be a lashback. I think you see some of that in people having concierge practices and those kind of things.
Yeah, but those are expensive,
right?
And they're not covered by the insurance. Concierge piece is not covered by insurance,
right?
So it's not great for the majority of people. I think what we need to do is go back to the old Chinese system, right, where you pay your doctor until you get sick. Right, and that way, I think,
Well, I think that would be good, but I do want to thank you for coming in and talking about this. A lot of the folks that are listening are in this, in the small deal world, in the SMB world, in the lower middle market. Obviously, when you get up into the larger transactions, $100 million deals in the investment banking world. Everybody says, "Oh, it's just another zero," and I'm like, "Nah, it's a little
Very
more.
different.
It's a little more complicated than that."
Yes.
And so, I think you gave us a great kind of examples and showing us what it's like up there in the large deals, and I really appreciate you coming in today.
My pleasure. It was
a
pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is?
What time?
It's time for Deal of the Week.
Ring the bell.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Deal of the Week, and I am with Alexander Wu from Transworld Business Advisors of Orange County. And Alex, you had a nice deal, and you're a pretty new agent.
Yeah.
And it was a nice small deal. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so joined the business brokerage about a year and a half ago. This was my first transaction. We got the client through a referral. So it was
Nice.
a close colleague of ours, and the business owner who was selling the business owned the hair salon for a decade plus.
Wow.
They had revenue, it's just that the business wasn't profitable.
Right.
On that day that we met, we decided to sign the listing agreement and took the business to market in 3 to 4 weeks. From there, we started qualifying buyers, speaking to a lot of buyers. But what we found was that a lot of buyers were tire kickers. They were shopping around, looking for something, but they weren't quite sure whether they wanted to purchase a hair salon.
Right.
So what we did is we started marketing it in a way that would be attractive for people who really wanted to start a hair salon business.
Right.
And to start a hair salon business, it could take anywhere north of 6 figures, right?
Right.
We had it marketed at a price where, because the business wasn't profitable, we marketed at a price that would be attractive for prospective buyers who would be able to improve the business.
Right.
And we got a buyer in 3 months after we listed it, and we closed it through escrow in 2 months. So the total deal time was around 5 to 6 months.
Right. And you got someone in there because a lot of times what we call second gen, right? So instead of building out a brand new place, and especially in places like California, having to get permits, having to get electricians, having to get plumbers, here's a business, may not be profitable, but it's already set to go. So you found that someone who wanted to get a hair salon business,
Right.
and for half that price, or maybe even 1/4 of that price, was able to buy something.
Yeah, and it was very meaningful, mainly because the business owner had to move out of country,
Right.
and had a very tight timeline, probably 7 months, 8 months before they had to move out. And we were able to sell the business before she actually had that date to move out of country.
Excellent. Good deals, good people. Alex, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more?
Yeah, you could visit our website, tworld.com/orange, or you could always find me on LinkedIn. Try to stay active. You could always reach out to me. I'm happy to give any advice, whether or not you decide to work with us. But
yeah, up and coming star. There you go. Thanks, Alex.
Appreciate it, Andy. Appreciate it.
Hey, JT, do you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for Listing of the Week.
I'm Raleigh DeLeon. I'm a broker with Transworld Business Advisors of Raleigh. We cover Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and Greensboro. And I've got an exciting listing for you today. It's a premier cabinet refacing franchise that's located in a prime market. What's interesting about this listing, it's $149,900 with sales at nearly $500,000, and they're not what they need to be. And the reason why is the owners of this franchise live 2 hours away from where this territory. They own 3 territories, and the 2 they're selling is the Durham market and the Raleigh market, specifically Cary. And that is a booming area in the Triangle. Each day, their team drives into the marketplace, does their work, drives back home, continues their work, which is inefficient and costly. They're generating over almost $500,000 in revenue, and they're making money, over $85,000 in SDE last year. I believe under the right focus and leadership, this business could easily double revenue. And the sellers know that too. Why wouldn't they do it? Well, they have other businesses they're focusing on in the city that they live in. So if you know of anybody that would be interested in this business, have them give me a call at 919-602-0355, or you can reach me at rdeleon@tworld.com. And this is your listing of the week.
Thanks for tuning in to the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.